Right. So just sitting, making yourself comfortable, and your feet flat on the floor. Try and be a little bit forward in the chair for a little while at least. Just feeling your weight going into your feet, about 30% of your weight in your feet. And just think about this feeling of sitting. We don't often sort of focus on it. We sit to read or eat or something like that. But just feel how your body responds to the the, the chair and the familiar posture. As always, take care in the colder weather, even if you're indoors in a warm room. Still, if you, especially if you've been outside, there's always this tendency to pull in, so it takes a little bit longer to warm up. And just rubbing your hands together. And this is a very good way of warming up. And it's a good morning exercise. Can be done in any order or anything. So with the pads of your fingers gently tapping over your face. And then go up over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. And the other side. Upper part of your chest. Light on your belly. Finally, your legs. Okay. So sit back in your chair with your feet out. And again, thinking about, or just observing, really, not even thinking about, but well, how does your body respond to the posture, to the chair, and that feeling that, it's the feeling that we would describe as releasing or softening in Tai Chi. And we often use, in standing postures, we often talk about our hips sitting into our legs, into the ground, our upper body sitting into our hips. And so it's a very apt description. So there's quite a lot going on in this that you would want to try and find a way to bring in to the upright postures. So just let your attention come into your body and notice what there is to notice. I mean, it could be your breathing, it could be a response in your chest or your shoulders, feeling of your blood pumping around your fingers. There's all sorts of different things that we might land on. And just letting that process of paying attention also help to settle your thoughts, if only for brief moments. Now bringing the feet in, coming to the upright position, and then once again sitting. So feet sort of sitting into the ground with that little bit of weight in your feet. Buttocks, hips, lower back sitting into the chair. And as that happens, it feels like they're sinking down. They probably won't sink down that much further, but you get a sense sometimes of a bit of space being created there. And that's when it's like your rib cage has somewhere to sit down into. Just beginning to feel how chair, of course, but also your feet and legs support your upper body. Feel how your back supports the front of your upper body. And how from within your body, you've got this area of the skeleton and the surrounding tissue. And the sort of outer regions, as it were, of soft tissue also have a feeling of sitting or flowing into that central area and then down into the ground. And as you begin to notice those, notice it a little bit, you gradually gain a bit more confidence in this, and so it enhances and so on and so forth. And again, paying attention to all of that, and between mind and body, what begins to happen internally is just this feeling of space begins to arise. Space for movement, space for your thoughts to rest. And from that resting point of your attention, just being able, feeling that you're able to kind of look out, if you like. The image is sometimes used of a watchtower, but I generally think, you know, if you go to a national park or an area of beauty, you'll often come across a designated viewpoint, and you go there and you're just looking out. You're not looking at anything in particular. You're just enjoying the whole range. And that's really the first sort of, and arguably in some ways the most useful and most important aspect of the mind training, the meditational element of Tai Chi, so that we can observe what's going on within and around the body. And just slowly begin to turn in your head, not too far. So one of the things that you're observing is how far you can move without creating a strain, without creating tension in your body. And that will probably be considerably less in the colder weather we've been experiencing. That's fine, as you know, as your body warms up and as the movement begins to flow, the boundaries of that comfortable space will gradually extend outwards. And then hands in front of your shoulders and circling your elbows around. Now, with this one and some of the future exercises, just feel what's happening in the pectoral muscles of your chest, the trapezius muscle in your back, as well as the muscles in your arms. And they're all parts of the body that we would look to be able to just release a bit more tension, to relax them a little bit. And when we do that, it encourages more of the body to get involved. And that could be tendon, ligament, fascia, the bones themselves, the skeletal muscle. And then going forwards, so big muscles like your biceps, triceps, the radial muscle in your arm, not straining for this move. Hands drop down, and then rotating your arms. Same thing here, so not stiff here. I mean, the muscles are being used, but it's just that they're not the only ones being used. And it's almost like you can feel the movement, not just from shoulder to elbow to fingers and so on, those sort of connections, but also from skin through to your bones. And that works in both directions. The movement seems to penetrate that far, soak in, but also, you know, there are times when it can feel as though it's coming from that deep in the body. And then just raise your arms and wind around. So this, I mean, these are good exercises in their own right. Again, particularly in the colder weather, joints can seize up very easily. And just spending a little bit of time with them like this, very gentle, very simple movements can be very important. And it can help to avert injury, improve your general sense of movement, mobility in the colder weather. And then back the other way. Never forcing any of the movements. And at the same time, of course, these are moving meditations. So these details that I talk about are ways of furthering that sense of quietness and stillness in your mind. Rest your hands down, easing forward. And then push yourself back. Feel the movement in the spine. The fluid, nice rhythm there. Turning a little bit, so you go more towards one leg. Just making sure that in turning you haven't twisted your back and your spine around, so you can still feel that fluidity of movement there. Turn the other way. And then going around in a circle, still with that quality of movement in back and spine. So don't go right out here, because if you do, then inevitably you're going to strain, in a sense, for how far that space that allows you to move extends. Back the other way. And back to the center. And then stepping out with one foot. Trying to get the whole of your foot on the floor, your heels, then your toes, good contact with the ground. And on the other side. And once again, just come back to the sitting upright posture. Let yourself settle in and just see how it feels after, well, we've just done what, 15 minutes. So it's not a massive amount of time, just get a sense, but again, the qualities of this posture, the spaciousness, the stillness, a sense of being settled, but also being aware. This is the state, if you like, think of it like that, that is sometimes called Zhongding, central equilibrium, sometimes symbolized by the mountain. And then drop your hands down to your sides, turn your hand palm forwards, move your weight forwards, and again rotating your arms. Remembering that style of movement deep into your arms, and if you can begin to get a glimpse of that, be aware that It's not just your arms. I mean, I've pointed you at your arms because I think it's a simpler way of actually developing this. And then fisherman cast the net. So as much as possible, we want to feel that the effort being made and the outcome of those efforts that we make being felt through the entire length of our body, and soles of our feet, right up to our back, into our fingers and so on. But also to the depth of our body, from our skin down into our bones, deeper regions of the body in one way or another. When one part of your body is in motion, the whole body is. And perhaps even more than the body, the sort of awareness that goes with it. Next time, rolling the ball into your chest. And then as you come back, drawing your elbows apart, pigeon spreads its wings. Weight goes forwards again. One more time. And then elbows still go out, but your hands stay more or less in front of your hips. Push and wave. And then hands lower down slightly and loosely fisted, punch with both hands. One more time. Now open your fingers and go back to the wild goose. and then follow that up with pushing wave. And then both fists. Back to the one fist. So just taking your time as you change over. And as you settle into the routine, particularly those of you who know the exercises and what's coming, notice the process of the change. And it's not one thing, seems to me. You know, you remember the exercise and you remember various things about it. Remember perhaps the name, the image. You have a kind of shape in your mind, shall we say. And that shape becomes your intent. And your intent guides the movement. So here we're going into pushing wave. And again, if you know, obviously you need certain knowledge of the exercises, but you don't have to think, well, my hand goes here and so on and so forth. By and large, it feels automatic, but in fact, it isn't quite automatic, because would you normally do this without thinking about it? Sit on a bus or something like that? Probably not. So there's a clear conscious intent here. And it affects both the body physically and the movement itself, the flow, the energy of the movement. We sometimes hear phrases like, you know, sometimes get people ask me, can you move the energy around? And I can see what they're saying, but actually it's not quite that straightforward. We've got these three interconnected aspects of ourselves: the body, of course, and our mind, our intent, and then the movement itself, the flow, the dynamic, the energy, all kind of come together, these three treasures of Tai Chi. One more time. So then winding your arms out, and again, you know, the better you know the sequence of movements, and we always follow the same order of movements in the first set. Don't always do the sequence, but there's a kind of expectation. You kind of know where you're going. We want to be careful not to get pulled ahead in our minds. That can happen quite easily. There's still this sense of observation in the moment. There's also a sense that knowing what's coming, you can almost project that shape. And it might be through the image, it might be through the memory, the physical aspect of the exercise. There's all sorts of elements to this. Change to polishing the table. So we begin to be able to not predict, but to have a sense of how each individual exercise performs. And there's a lot of similarity between the exercises, and guided by our intent, they could have different effects. Some will clearly lead themselves quite nicely to particular parts of the body. This one, if you feel that your back's a bit stiff, then gently this one can be nice on the back. So can other exercises. But other exercises might sort of focus your attention a bit more on other things. But intent is always going to be important. They're not rigid and set in stone, these applications of the exercises. But it means that we can begin to kind of use the movements to help us with the areas of tightness in the body and so on and so forth. We can sort of project the movement into those areas in one way or another. The mechanics of the movement, the intent, the imagery. Just one more time. Settling back, and your hands palm up. Push up from your hips, with your back lengthening, and then push up. So sometimes when we've identified an area, maybe a shoulder or whatever, that feels a bit blocked in one way or another, for one reason or another, just bringing our attention and our intention to those that area can make a difference. You know, the overall broad intention that we have when we come to a session, when we know what sort of expectations that we have, and you know, the kind of quality of movement that underlies the foundation, really, or part of the foundation for all of these practices, and just the intention of that. Oh yeah, you know, can bring about a change, physical change in the shoulder. Doesn't always work out. And then hands coming down to your sides. One goose. Other times we might need to be a little bit more focused, shall we call it. You might need to think about how you're doing the movement and your posture. Thinking about, again, the physical aspect, the mechanics of the movement. Or we might find, for instance, that a particular image, one I often use is imagine the movement like water flowing over a rock and smoothing it off. Other people like to imagine they can breathe into those areas, breathe out the tension, breathe out the stagnant energy. So it depends what suits you best at any particular time. But when we start to bring these three elements of body, mind, and energy together, the three treasures of Tai Chi, we open up those sort of possibilities of influencing body and movement, mind, because all these three elements interact and essentially become one. And then easing forward. As you come back, just for a moment, a very strong intent for your hips and buttocks to sink into the chair, to sit into the chair, for instance. So some of these ideas, some of these images, intents are common to all of the movements and are pretty consistent. Others might be specific to one or two different exercises or to what we feel that we need at any particular time. You know, if you've had a busy morning and your need predominantly is to just quieten down and have a bit of space, you might not want to be thinking about the shoulder or that back or whatever, and that's fine. You might just be concentrating on the smoothness of the flow of the movement, encouraging that as a kind of calming quality. If you've been a bit sleepy, quite common at this time of year, of course, but you know, you feel as though you want to just be a little bit more alert, then that becomes part of your intent. Now change into Dragon Plucks the Stars from the Sky. So it's a little bit more rounded off than simply a case of moving the energy to a particular place, because in the end, although I talk about them separately, I don't think we want body, mind, and energy to be different from each other. They're three aspects of the same thing. Think of a tripod that you've got a camera on, or three sticks leaning against each other. They're all part of the same structure and equally important. Take any one away, and the structure collapses. One time. Both hands together, expanding, expanding, contracting. That rhythm, that pulse is one of the consistent intents with all the movements, as is the way that we use our body in line with the pull of gravity, how we work with that alignment, the sinking of the center of gravity. The movement of your weight and the way that the center of your body directs that movement. All the exercises will make use of those. And then put one foot out, knees still a bit bent, scooping the sea, and then feeling your hips drop back in the chair, drawing on your shoulders coming up, your head followed by your arms, looking at the sky. And then changing, grasping the tiger's ear. Feel how you're using chest and upper back. And again, increasingly, we want to feel that the movement can be produced from inside out as well as from outside in. Changing over. And grasping the tiger's ear. Bring your feet parallel. Just come back to sitting and bringing your attention to that area between the hips and waist, to the area that you want to feel as though it's sitting into the ground, but also supporting the upper part of your body, allowing that to sit in. So this becomes this central area. It becomes the location of the viewpoint, the place where we bring our attention to, and from there down into the ground. When we're looking for that quality of stillness, that in both mind and body, that is really the kind of foundation for all of these other aspects. It's hard, the stuff I've been talking about being aware of this and that, and how that movement can do this, and so on. It's hard to be able to work with those if your mind is scattered all over the place. Just as it's hard to notice what's going on, say, you're looking out from a cliff, you're watching the sea, but your mind is elsewhere and you'll be missing things. So stillness is really intimately interconnected with the movement. So just open your eyes. So rubbing your hands together again. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder and your arm. On the other side. Upper part of your chest. Belly. And finally, the legs. Putting your heels up. And circling. And back the other way. Okay, and then standing. As always, when standing, if you want to make use of the support of the chair or something, please do. I'm going to move my chair out of the way so I don't keep bumping into it, but I do use it sometimes. So the kind of thing that I've been talking about, a lot of it is sort of like something you think, oh, I could do with this or I could do with that. But underlying all of this, there are some fairly consistent intents that we want to maintain. The alignment with the pull of gravity, the rooting down, the kind of pulse of the movement, these kind of things that are common to all of the exercises and that we want to take into our daily lives. And the awareness that goes with those things as well. So they're always a key part of the practice. The more we bring our attention back to those in the practice, the more those particular intents become hardwired into our system and begin to affect everything in that sense. So it's the regularity of practice that makes the difference. So this is a good exercise. Standing with your feet hip width apart and just rocking your weight forwards and backwards. So the first thing, if you notice, is you can go too far very easily. At that point, you have to take a step, or you tense up, or whatever. So we don't go that far. You don't want to go too far. You get a sense for how gravity is working through your body. Another thing we want to make sure of is that I imagine this pole is the center line of the body. You can see I'm not doing something like this or this. I'm not bending my neck. I'm not bending my back. My body's pivoting from my ankles. Another thing to do with the center line is if it didn't move with me, I can move away from it a little bit. Probably wobbling around a bit now, so. But if I move too far, that's what happens. I fall over. So this becomes the center line of the body becomes a reference point. I sometimes describe it as being like the mooring post of a boat on the sea. The boat drifts off a little bit, but it's always pulled back. So one way or another, we come to rest, and ideally with your weight focused behind the balls of your feet. But in fact, the really key thing is to feel that from the crown of your head down through your body, the whole of your body, into your legs and into your feet, is this straight line of the pull of gravity. It's pulling you down into your feet rather than pulling you over. And then we just allow our hips to drop. We let our center of gravity to drop. And this brings us once again into this sort of state of central equilibrium. In line with the pull of gravity, soften your knees and your hips. Again, sitting into the ground, your shoulders sitting in to your hips. And less tightness in the body means more space in the body. An awareness of that center part of your body, so it begins to feel as though a part of your attention is always connected to that quality of stillness. It's always something you can come back to. And then sinking down, bringing your hands around as though you're cradling the ball, pushing up and doing these 3 movements as a little sequence, rooting down, and the wild goose. And parting the clouds. And as you become settled into the routine, once again, just noting the process of change and this sense that at this point, some of you will realize, oh yeah, this is when we're going to routine down, and your body seems to follow that. You don't want to do it too quickly. This is where anticipating can be quite difficult. It's like going on a familiar journey and then suddenly realizing that you've taken a turning a bit too early and you're now lost. So here, we're going to be doing rooting down, but we're prepared to wait until we get to the end of the movement and then let the body take the correct shape, and so on and so forth. It's a difficult balance to find between looking into the future here and drawing on the past and memory and things like that, but keeping a very firm sense of being in the present moment. So I talk about the mind being still. There's many aspects to our minds, and mind would also, in these traditions, not just a kind of thinking mind, but mind is often referred to as heart mind in these traditions, because the terms for mind seem to include aspects that we might more clearly associate with the heart, so emotions and feelings and so on and so forth. All of these become things that we work with in one way or another from that point of stillness. one foot forwards. So central equilibrium becomes an intent. We want to feel that the whole time. So as you begin to transfer your weight, you may not keep it all the time. Ideally, we would, but I doubt that anybody does the whole time. But what we can do is recognize that when the weight has arrived in one leg or another, we can take a moment to re-establish central equilibrium. So like the boat moored to the post, it drifts away, but it doesn't drift away too far. So that becomes a regular intent. And then raising your toes and your heel. So it's central equilibrium, those qualities associated with the rooting, the alignment, strength that comes from within, that actually helps us taking the step. So if we can build this idea of central and equilibrium and our associations with it into our kind of everyday subconscious intent, which we use all the time, then it's going to have an impact on just our daily lives. On the other side, transferring your weight. As always, this is not to suggest that all we need to do is think the right thoughts and everything else comes into place. It's these three elements of body, mind, of movement. So if I was doing this and I was thinking, that doesn't feel right, I haven't got central equilibrium, I can't quite get to it, then what I might need to look at is, oh, what am I doing with my knee? What am I doing with my hip? What am I doing with my shoulder? And so on and so forth. And if I've got a bad knee or I've got a bad hip or something like that, it's going to be more difficult. And you know, we can't just think our way past these barriers. It's not just a question of thinking the right thoughts by any means. Just raising your toes and your heel. So don't guilt trip yourself. Don't think I must be doing something dreadfully wrong if I can't find central equilibrium. It could be as simple as that bit of arthritis in your knee flaring up. It's not you making a grievous mistake. You know, these things do happen. Stepping in, you might be going down the road thinking, "Oh, it's a bit wobbly. Can't seem to get it straight today." Might not be you. It might be the pavement is tilted. It might be that the wind is blowing. There's all sorts of things that we have to deal with. So this is not an excuse to guilt trip. Bring your foot in, stepping through. What you may find in doing the slow stepping is every now and then there's a kind of, oh, and you know, can you just, oh, yeah, settle down again. Changing direction. And what I would say is, when you experience that, again, be sensible about your expectations. Don't think, oh, I can stand on one leg and do this. You might not be able to. I can't all the time. But you put the toes down, think that's the response that you're looking for. You might be able to do it on one leg, and sometimes when you can do that, it feels quite good. It has to be said, oh, did that well, but it doesn't happen all the time because it didn't happen then. That was a classic example. That wasn't deliberate. Shake out. Why did it happen? Because I'm talking to you. Because I'm thinking about the class and I'm not fully focused. But the foot went down. I didn't fall over. That's a good result. So have your right foot forwards. Now sink into your back leg get that feeling of sinking down. There's plenty of time, and just turn, swing your arms out. Go forwards, settle into your front leg and turn. Wind blows the willows. Rooted in your feet, transmitted through your legs, directed through the center of your body, which is where that point of stillness is, and expressed in your arms. And can you feel that, what I describe as depth of movement in the arms? Good, and try that on the other side. So left foot forwards, into your back foot and turn. Your body contracting, expanding. So once again, that habitual rhythm. You get to know the style of the movement, the underlying dynamics of all the movement. Expanding, contracting, expanding. This time, raise your back heel, step in, or you could go in the other direction, step through, dragonfly skims the water. Just put my toes down, finding, again, central equilibrium. But then I might try, I'll see how it feels, bring the foot in, I'll have a go. What happens when I raise my legs? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's any number of factors involved in that. Key thing here, can you just focus your intent in the correct way? And then change direction. If you could, if you have that little wobble, can you return to that? That's arguably the more times you wobble, the more useful this is, because it's not so much can I maintain this state the whole time as can I find it when I lose it. One more time. And bring your feet parallel. Shake out. So go back to your chairs. So the last exercise, embrace tiger, return to the mountain, as I've said before, really reinforces that point I was making there. I love the quote from a very well-known, highly loved teacher called T.T. Liang. It must have been made when somebody said to him how he was always in such good balance, where his response was to say that he lost balance all the time, but would get it back all the time. So I think it's just fantastic. It really cheered me up to hear that, actually, not just me. But in terms of practical tools, it's that returning process, whether it be from a bit of a trip on the pavement or in the house, or whether it be when if we're a bit anxious about something or something's annoyed us, can we come back to that can we find that serene, quiet space just for a moment to help us to settle down? Those are the practical outcomes, I think, of these arts, or some of them at least. So hands at your sides, embrace tiger, return to mountain. We start by reaching out, but then beginning to draw back in. And again, from that point of stillness, can you just observe how you're doing this? The intent is to come back. Your hands come around to hold the ball, then the hands come in, and then everything flows downwards. So the exercise itself is very simple. Those of you who haven't seen it before, and this is what it looks like from the side. Knowing where you want to go back to, your intent is focused on that from about this point, really. And you just observe how that happens. In both, not both, but all three of those treasures of body, mind, and energy. And then coming to rest. Thank you very much, everybody.